All right, what's going on, everybody? Brandon Warren here for another episode of the Midwest Swing Podcast and simulcast, coming to you live on Periscope and also on recording YouTube. You can check out the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, Google Play, anywhere you get your podcasts at. Anyway, thank you for joining us. If you're listening on the podcast side of things, you can check out zonecoverage.com, and this will be posted there as a YouTube video. So come hang out whenever I'm on, and we'll have a good time. And anyway, so tonight I kind of wanted to get back up to speed here. We haven't done one of these since the end of the Twins season, and in fact, I think it was quite a ways back into the season before we had done these. So just kind of trying to, hit you guys up here and hopefully have some productive discussions about what the Twins should do the rest of the way this off season. Obviously, very exciting to see the Twins in the conversations for guys like you, Darvish, possibly Jake Arrieta, pitchers of that caliber, the kind of guys the Twins have not really gone after here in the last few years in terms of free agents or trades or anything like that. So we can talk about that. We can talk about some of the acquisitions the Twins have already made. And so again, if you have questions, send them to me on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. I have my screen beneath here posting all your questions. So if you have questions, please send them to me on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. I can scroll them more easily. The Periscope interface makes them disappear after 3 or 4 seconds. So again, if you want me to answer questions, at Brandon_Warren. Hope you guys all had a great Christmas and holiday season. We're coming up on New Year's here pretty soon, but it's a lot of fun. We're getting to the point in the off season where some of these guys and some of these dominoes are going to have to fall fairly quickly. I did see a question on the app here on Periscope. Again, I prefer those questions on Twitter, and I didn't see who sent it. They asked me about Darvish versus Archer. So let's just dive right into that. Personally, I don't know. It's kind of difficult because Chris Archer obviously is going to take a significant prospect package to be traded for. And what helps is he signed for the next 4 years for something like, I think it's $34 million or $36 million. So obviously the kind of pitcher where, he might make $30 million per year in free agency if he were to be a free agent right now, which obviously is not the case. So that kind of value is going to dictate the trade package that requires, that the Rays will require to trade him. With that said, he's not burning a hole in their pocket. So it's not like they really need to be motivated to take the best offer they can get right now, as opposed to waiting it out for maybe, July or whenever teams, maybe there's a big injury in spring training and a team gets desperate. They don't necessarily need to play by those rules. So they can slow play it while they rebuild or while they start over, since they have traded Evan Longoria, which I think kind of signaled their white flag, so to speak. I also think not putting a qualifying offer on Logan Morrison probably, set that chain in motion. So I think Archer, I was looking at some stuff. I'm going to write an article for Zone Coverage, maybe late tonight, maybe tomorrow. But I think he'd be a good fit for the Twins and, possibly able to come out of this 2-year mini funk that he's in, where he's posted back-to-back seasons of ERAs over 4. I'm not going to dive into my methodology too much because I want you guys to click the link, but I do think that there are some things underlying that could be helped by Darvish getting out of Tampa Bay. Now, with that said, Darvish is obviously an intriguing fit, very familiar with Thad Levine going back to his time in Texas. Right-handed pitcher, dynamic repertoire, lots of different arm angles, velocity, already has the Tommy John surgery in his past, has not been extremely durable, but I think it's for every 180 innings he's pitched, he's something like a 3.7 Fangraphs WAR pitcher, which is obviously a very, very good pitcher. Maybe not as good as I think people think he's been, but at the same time, when you look at his repertoire, his swinging strike rates and everything, there's room for improvement even though he's not exactly a young guy. So I think based on, the pedigree and everything that he's got, you get the sense that there's more in there if you can keep him healthy, which again is a big question mark. I don't care too much about the playoffs, although I do want to know about tipping pitches, and I think that Torrey Hunter and Paul Molitor in the Twins' corner in that respect is helpful. If they think that he was tipping pitches, which seems to be the widely reported thing from the World Series, and it's why he pitched so poorly in those last 2 starts, I believe that that's something that Torrey Hunter would pick up on, quickly by watching a few pitches from one of those games, or just watching him at the stadium. That's the kind of thing he's just very, very good at. So I'm not too worried about that. That's something that pitchers can go through and can come out of, as far as how they set up with what pitches they're throwing, and their gloves, their glove placement, and that sort of thing. So if I had to pick one or the other, I realize I'm kind of taking the broad approach here to my explanation. I'm probably picking Darvish, just because then you get to keep your assets in-house. You don't have to trade your Alex Kirilloff, you don't have to trade your Nick Gordon, you don't have to trade your Fernando Romero. Now, with that said, Chris Finstead was the first question on my Twitter feed, a very close friend of mine. He said, what do you think about both? Again, I know that both sounds crazy. It'd be the best offseason in Twins history for sure. In 91, they brought in Chili Davis, they brought in Jack Morris, but still, this would blow that away. This is like Parisi Suter, this is like Jimmy Butler, and then probably more than Taj Gibson. It would be a very, very big offseason. It could happen in the sense that budgetary-wise, it makes sense. What that would require, in my opinion, though, is a trade of Archer before signing Darvish. Now, I don't know that I see that happening, because I think Darvish is going to be the first domino that falls. I think Darvish is going to go off the board first, and then you're going to see Lane, you're going to see Cobb, you're going to see Arrieta, and then the trade market might develop because of teams that maybe miss out or want to keep their payrolls down. Keep in mind, with that low payroll figure that Archer has, teams like the Yankees, Dodgers, all these teams that want to keep their payrolls down are going to be more apt to target a guy like that if they're, have prospects to give. The Yankees have obviously that situation. The other Rays might not want to deal him in the division. The Dodgers obviously have prospects to give. But what I think is going to happen is that the Twins would need to trade for Archer, which, their payroll's in a good spot going into next year. It's 20 some odd million committed, with Byung-Ho Park off the books, with Michael Pineda now on the books. There's about a $5 million difference there. With all that committed, there's still only about $28 million committed to next year's payroll. By comparison, the Angels are like $112 million. The Dodgers are like $97 million. So the Twins, in theory, will have ample payroll space going into next offseason to operate. You can manipulate a deal with someone like a Yu Darvish. Maybe you pay him $10 million the first year, $30 million the second year, to structure it so that it keeps your payroll in check, so to speak. You can do that, but I don't think they're going to make that payroll splash, then cycle back and get Archer. I think it would have to be the other way around. And so I think that those two things are going to kind of counteract each other. But in theory, yes, the payroll could work with Chris Archer making whatever it is, $8 million next year or whatever. They could make it work by paying those two guys a combined $35 million or whatever. You could exercise the option on Irvin Santana. You could extend Brian Dozier and still probably have a payroll in the vicinity of $100 million with some wiggle room. Because, again, you're talking about first-year arbitration eligibility for guys like Miguel Sano, I think Max Kepler, Eddie Rosario. I think Byron Buxton is in that mix too. But basically what you're talking now is that all of your young players are starting to get to that arbitration eligibility, which is why it makes sense to sign someone like that now. If you can front load it, go ahead. I don't know how high they can push the payroll this year. I don't think that should be an issue, but again, it's not my money. But you kind of have to follow the Cubs plan in that they signed John Lester, Ben Zobrist. You need to supplement your youngsters with capable veterans who, you pay market rate for them. Now with that said, you still have to, be careful with how you dish out that money. You don't want to have a contract that's like Jason Hayward or anything like that. And the other complicating factor now is when you think about how this offseason has played out, and while you're not hearing these big teams in on Yu Darvish, not because Darvish isn't good, but because they're trying to lower payroll, next offseason is going to be a bloodbath. It's for Bryce Harper. It's for Manny Machado, to some extent Josh Donaldson. Basically, the way I see it is this. There are more teams interested in big free agents than there will be big free agents available next offseason. So whoever ends up with Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, they're going to be happy. They'll be fat and happy. The $400 million deal, whatever. The teams that are jilted are going to focus their efforts on Dallas Keuchel, Garrett Richards, David Price if he opts out. I think he probably will based on money as long as he has a semi-decent season with the Red Sox. And obviously he's got his fingers crossed for that. Clayton Kershaw might opt out. If the Twins are in a position where they still need to add a starter, then they have to pay super duper premium for a Dallas Keuchel, who I like. Don't get me wrong, I love Dallas Keuchel. Garrett Richards, injury risks. He hasn't been healthy for a full season. I'm not interested in paying Clayton Kershaw $30 million plus for a long deal with the way his back is going. He's the best pitcher on the planet, don't get me wrong. But if he opts out of what he's got already committed to him, you know he's looking for probably a 7-year, 8-year deal at $30 million per, if not more. Basically tear up the contract and sign a new one that's identical to the one he already has or more. So that's why the pursuit of Darvish right now makes the most sense. And I saw somebody ask if they think you could sign him for under $24 million per. I don't think so. I think it's probably going to be 25 per. I don't know if it'll jump higher than that. The number I'm at is 5 years, $125 million. I would have no problem putting in a vesting option for $30 million for the 6th year, which vests at 350 innings combined over the 2 years previous, years 4 and 5. If he gives you 175 innings per year for those final 2 years, I would say odds are that you would be very happy to pay Yu Darvish $30 million 6 years from now. Again, that's assuming he holds up. You know, I can't imagine a scenario where he holds up physically, but then doesn't hold up in terms of, you know, the repertoire playing to a very high level. I don't see it. If he falls off, it's going to be health. It's going to be many things, and I don't think he would then vest that deal. So if you're okay with doing 5 and he insists on a 6th, you can probably put some kind of provision in there that protects you. And a 5-year deal, I think Darvish is 31. I saw someone asking. You know, a 5-year deal at 31 is not great, but it's not the end of the world either. And again, you're probably hoping for maximum value on the front end and giving some on the back. So again, I realize that's a very long-winded answer to a couple of questions here, but you know, I think Darvish would be a really great fit for this team. Let's see, we got a couple other questions here. We have Colin Nelson. Does the Twins' interest in Mike Napoli have any impact on Darvish since he was in Texas? Frankly, I don't know. I know that Napoli is regarded as a good clubhouse guy. Obviously, you know, won the World Series with the Red Sox, got the shirtless walking through Boston, all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if Chris Jimenez has anything to do with that. But if signing those two guys gets you Darvish, you do it. There's no questions asked. You sign Mike Napoli to be your platoon right-handed versus lefties DH. You sign Chris Jimenez to be your backup catcher. And I know people don't love Chris Jimenez because, you know, more of his value is in the clubhouse, and fans don't necessarily see that the same way. But look at his batting line. He had like a 340 something on base, 350 something on base, maybe even higher than that. But offensively he was pretty average, and the standard for a backup catcher is not very high, and he basically met that standard. So if bringing in Mike Napoli and Chris Jimenez gets you the leg up on Yu Darvish, or gets you Yu Darvish, do it. Do it. There's no questions asked. Brandon Perman says, would it be safe to say it is a huge disappointment if they don't get Darvish or trade for a frontline starter by spring training? I think people are going to expect me to say no. But I'm going to say yes. I think based on all the smoke that we've heard, whether it's team-specific or just stuff that reporters have kind of put out there reading between the lines, I think the expectation has been laid out there that they want a frontline starter. Now, when I say frontline starter, I'm not necessarily saying an ace. And we had that argument about ace and Chris Archer on my Twitter timeline today. You can scroll through that and look if you wish. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But what they need is someone who's capable of starting a game 1, a game 2, or a game 3 in the postseason. They have 2 of those guys in Jose Barrios and Irvin Santana. Kyle Gibson could be the kind of guy that might sign as a number 4, or might make a number 4 start. You need a 4th starter in the playoffs. Gibson could maybe do that. Pineda could probably do that once he's healthy, but you need, one more starter for me to feel comfortable about this team winning more than just a wild card game. Going into a division series, best of 5 or a best of 7, and winning that series. And so I don't feel confident that without that 3rd starter, and I don't mean number 3, I just mean a 3rd capable, competent starter. I think it would be a huge disappointment if they don't come out of this offseason with that starter, whether it's a trade for Garrett Cole, Chris Archer, or if it's a signing of Darvish, Alex Cobb, Lance Lynn, Jake Arrieta. I think all those names qualify. There are probably some names we haven't brought up that would also qualify. Kevin Gausman. If the Orioles commit to being garbage for the next few years, and frankly I think they should, I would be all over Kevin Gausman too, and I think that would be Garrett Cole minus some of the sticker shock. Now, the home run issues for Gausman are probably real and a little bit more scary, but as far as physical talent goes, there's very few pitchers as physically talented as Kevin Gausman, so I'd obviously be all over that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Grady Cruz wants to know, will Tyler J make the bullpen this year? If not him, which minor leaguer does? I don't think to start the season he will, and I think it's just because they need more innings out of him, but I think he's close. I think between him and John Curtis, you're probably looking at one of those guys making the leap this year. I did write about Alan Buznitz in my report card series for this evening. Check that out, zonecoverage.com. I learned a lot about Alan Buznitz just by reading a few things about him. He's interesting. He throws hard. He needs his curveball to be a little better, but the fastball is really, really good. And the numbers against the fastball and the curveball, he's basically a 2-pitch guy, are both very, very good. Low OPS against sort of thing. And so I really do think that Buznitz can take a step forward and be solid. And I do think that the next wave of guys like that is going to be a Tyler J or a John Curtis. I think Tyler J pitches big league innings this year. I just don't know how soon. Terry Anderson wants to know, are the Twins done with the bullpen this off season? I do think I think Fernando Rodney was the big move. I think Zach Duke was the medium move. I think they're still going to troll that minor league free agent type market to find a guy who is intriguing. And as much as that doesn't make fans excited, it's not a Greg Holland, it's not a Wade Davis. They've had some success on that market. Granted, not this front office, but the previous front office. But if you could get another Jared Burton or a Casey Fien, those are valuable pieces. I don't know a lot of names available at this point. I haven't done enough research to see what kind of guys are signing those kind of deals. But, guys like Aaron Barrett, who was with the Nationals a few years ago and threw gas, those are the kind of guys I find interesting. Guys, Shea Simmons, was a guy who had a lot of potential with the Braves, traded to the Mariners, has not been healthy. If they take a couple flyers on guys like that, that's fine with me. I think the bullpen, as uninspiring as the bullpen was last year on the whole, I think you see enough individual pieces that when used properly can become a good bullpen. And it doesn't require spending 3 years and almost $30 million on a Jake McGee, who I liked a lot, or Brian Shaw, who I thought was obviously solid, but maybe on the cusp of breaking apart a little bit with how much he's been used. I know the Twins have never handed out a multi-year deal to an outside reliever. I would be willing to break that for a 2-year deal for someone. I just don't know who's left on the market that I would be willing to really do that for. A lot of the guys that I was interested in have basically signed already, Cishek and those kind of guys. So I don't know. I'd have to look and maybe write a blog about it or something like that. But I do think if they take some of these intriguing 25 to 27-year-old types who either have high-level minor league success or were successful in the big leagues 2-3 years ago, I'm all for that. I think the Zach Duke signing, and I saw someone comment in the chat room here, Zach Duke, obviously, a really good move for the Twins as someone who can get lefties and righties out. I think that makes Taylor Rogers more valuable, makes Buddy Boshears more valuable. I just think, I think it's a good move. And I think, again, when you bump relievers into lower leverage roles or shuffle them around, Tyler Duffy moves up. He maybe works in the 6th inning. Hildenberger gets to work more 8th innings. When you put that wedge in there and get guys into set roles where they're not overworked, that can only benefit this team. And so, again, I'm not saying the bullpen's going to go toe-to-toe with the Yankees, Dodgers, anything like that. But I think the bullpen can be solid. And I think that's enough right now. The Astros didn't have a very good bullpen this year. In fact, they were like 6 points off from the Twins. But they won the World Series. Now, granted, they had Justin Verlander, Lance McCullers. They had Brad Peacock pick things up. They had guys that stepped up and did what needed to be done. But I'm just saying, there's not one path to success. If the Twins maximize the talent in their organization, they'll be fine. All right, what else we got? Brandon Perman wants to know, Rodney closes this year. Who do you think emerges as the man going forward? Do they have someone in-house? This is a name I haven't brought up in quite a while, but I think they want JT Chargois to be that guy, assuming he's healthy, of course, and can get healthy again. But keep in mind, we saw nothing from Chargois last year, and he was really good in September of 2016. He's going to need some time to get back up to speed. But Chargois is a guy I'm really excited about, and virtually nobody's talking about him. I still think John Curtis can be good if Buznets misses some bats. And I wouldn't object to Hildenberger being the closer because he is the kind of guy who can get lefties out, not so much with strikeouts, but with changeups, fading changeups to the outside of the plate where he gets pop-ups to the left side. So, I think any number of guys could be closers in the near future, but I think they want Rodney to take that role, at least from the start. Again, a reminder, if you're in the chat room, send your questions to me at Brandon_Warren on Twitter. Periscope's interface does not allow them to stay up long enough for me to actually record them in this noodle here. So if you want your question answered, send it to me on Twitter at Brandon_Warren. Colin McLean wants to know why I left the bottle of Maker's Mark on the shelf behind me unopened. It was actually a Christmas gift, so I haven't had a chance to get into it yet. Tonight we're working on some Templeton Rye, which you can see on the farthest left here. It's probably my favorite one. It's very smooth and very delicious. And we celebrated my daughter's birth with some Lagavulin 18, which was pretty great as well. She just turned 7 months. We had our first Christmas with her. Awesome time. If you have a chance to have kids, highly recommend it. Being a dad is awesome. I have a little girl. Her name's Harper, and she's amazing. So we'll go back to ranting about baseball here. If you got more questions, people, feel free to send them in. I saw someone ask how many wins for the Twins in 2018. I've been kind of thinking at this from a couple of different perspectives. Keeping in mind, the Royals are going to be gutted by free agent defections. Your Hosmers, your Moustakas, your Canes, even down to Alcides Escobar, who's been on that team for a very long time. I mean, even if they bring him back, it's not like he's going to give them a ton of value. That team's been gutted. They're going to be in the rebuilding mix as far as the American League Central with the White Sox and with the Tigers. The Tigers really bottomed out in the last month of the season. Now you're going to get a full year of them playing, not particularly good. That's only going to help the Twins record-wise. It's really a two-horse race, and that might bump the Twins an extra 4 or 5 wins at the end of the day. I don't know. I see like a 92-win team right now, 91. Keep in mind, what did I say last year? 80. I think I said 80 and they won 85. And nobody wanted to believe me when I said 80, and I totally get it because, they were awful the year before. I see like a 91, 92 win team right now. And, you add Darvish, you're probably a 94, 95 because I don't necessarily believe that WAR means you just add those wins. It's wins in the margins and that sort of thing. And they could be a 95-win team, though, with, not too much needing to be added. Again, the rest of the division outside of Cleveland is going to be horrible. If they take care of business there's no reason they don't win, 40 games in the AL Central, which is, unbelievable. Bill Peterson wants to know thoughts on Trevor May in 2018. I don't know that you can count on more than 100 innings from him, and that's even that seems high. That's assuming he's a starter. Obviously, as a reliever, it'd be more like 50. I don't know. I want to have high hopes for him because he's a good guy and a good pitcher when he's healthy. But I just don't know what role he fits into. I don't know that they have a rotation spot for him. When he was in the bullpen, he had the back issues and the core issues and all that stuff. So, I don't know. I'm really hoping... I'm really upset that in 2015, when he was cruising, or not cruising, but pitching well in the rotation, and they bumped him for Mike Pelfrey. Or was that 2014? I can't remember for sure. But just, obviously, I think it was 2015. I just can't believe that they did that when they knew Pelfrey was going to walk as a free agent. Yeah, it's for sure 2015. And then, it ends up May falls off with injuries and all that stuff. And, they sent him to a bullpen. He's a good reliever when he's healthy, but he just, couldn't really hold up to that workload and the repetition and all that. And he's a big, strong guy. He wants to be a starter. He told me starters get paid. He wants to get paid. People are going to say that's greedy. I think it's go get your money. The amount of time that you can make money for your family is limited. Go get your money, man. So I want to see what happens for Trevor May, and I want it to be a good thing. And I hope it's with the Twins, but wherever it is, I'm rooting for him. Devlin Clark wants to know, based on the Rodney and Duke signings along with Hildy and other bullpen guys, the objective is clear, more strikeouts and grounders. Yes, absolutely. The big thing is that strikeouts are obviously outs. Unless the catcher drops it and the guy reaches, those are the safest outs. Grounders are, much lower slash line allowed. So, grounders don't end up being extra base hits. With a good infield defense, you can turn 75% of them into outs. So we love grounders, we love strikeouts, we prefer not to walk anybody. That's kind of like the holy trinity of pitching. So I totally get where they're coming from on all that. Duke, at his peak, a little shaky with the walks, but lots of strikeouts and lots of grounders, with the White Sox. Ben W. wants to know, how do I feel about what the Marlins, and how do I feel about what Derek Jeter's doing with the Marlins? How long until they're competitive again? I mean, I understand burning it to the ground. That offense, they had 8 guys with 100 or better OPS plus numbers, and the 9th guy was D. Gordon, who, based on base running and everything, gives you, obviously, plenty of value there. But they just couldn't find the pitching. It's obviously tragic that Jose Fernandez passed away, but with Jose, if Jose Fernandez is still in the mix, and I don't want this to be a take or anything like that, if Jose Fernandez is still in the mix, I don't think they're doing any of this. And that's what's so unfortunate, so awful, is that, these things happen and you have to deal with them as your reality. And so it totally sucks. And, competitive again, 5 years. I think 5 years is the bare minimum when you got it. Detroit. I see Detroit fans saying, 2 years will be good again. No, it's 3 to 5, man. When you burn these things to the ground, and keep in mind Detroit's got to, basically shoulder the rest of the V-Mart deal. Miguel Cabrera's contract is going to be burdensome. You got to shoulder all that. They got out of the Verlander deal. They got Justin Upton out of town. But there's still going to be some pretty ugly deals. Zimmerman, all that. So it's going to be ugly for a long time in both Detroit and Miami. Josh Meyer, and this will be the last question I take tonight because we're coming up on our half hour and things don't necessarily record very good outside of a half hour. Josh Meyer wants to know, can you see the Twins sign another veteran right-handed reliever like Houston Street or Tyler Clippard? I love Houston Street. I've loved Houston Street forever. He's been a strikeouts, no walks guy, but I feel like he was a fly ball guy, and if they're going for grounders, that might fly in the face of that. Also, not sure if he's healthy, but I love Houston Street, and I'd give him a chance. Tyler Clippard, I'm pretty ambivalent about. As a 5th, 6th inning, 7th inning guy, another depth piece, your 6th guy in the bullpen, 7th guy, that's fine. You just start running out of pieces and spots, though, because you do have to commit 4 or 5 spots to existing guys already. So, I don't know. If one of them takes a minor league deal, you might be onto something. But otherwise, I don't know. I just think that, if minor league deal with an invite to spring training, if you can get Houston Street on that, go do it. If you can't, no, it's not going to happen. All right, hey, thanks for hanging out. You've been watching and listening to Midwest Swing, part of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network. Peace.